Hello, everybody. Good afternoon.
Good
Welcome
afternoon.
to Enfiniti Academy's discussion on leadership. Today we have Joanna Bessie, our head of department, head of Enfiniti Academy, and also Sandra Sodi, a veteran artist, actor, thespian, yeah, and also trainer, corporate trainers. We're all corporate trainers, right? And we're going to talk today about how leadership affect the current work scenarios, and of course, in this trying times, everybody's trying to recover basically their businesses, and we all agree that leadership is a very important skill to have. And maybe we can start with Joanna. Why, maybe you can explain why is leadership skill the most important thing to have at this point in time?
Yeah, thanks so much, Tria. Plus, I'm also going to introduce you, Tria Aziz, award-winning performer and vocal coach and corporate trainer. And Sandra Sodi is also our master trainer for Enfiniti Academy's corporate training. And for myself, I'm also a corporate trainer as well. And we specialize in drama-based corporate training. And as Tria mentioned, today we really want to talk about leadership and leadership development because we feel like now is the time when it's even more relevant to
Most
everybody in the
needed.
workplace. Yes, not necessarily you are in a leadership role already that you need to develop this skill set, but everybody, especially in these trying times, post pandemic, post COVID, we've been through a lot over the last almost 3 years. And we feel that anyone who follows us at Infinity Academy or knows what we do should also benefit from the skill set that we try to develop in not just our leaders, but in everybody. So I think to answer that question further that Tria just posed, I'd also like to put this to Sandra Sodi. So do you feel, Sandra, in your experience, that leadership development and the traits of a leader are only relevant for those who are in management and leadership positions?
You have to learn how to be a good leader. You never know when you're going to be called on. The opportunity may only knock once. Remember, even in your peer group of juniors, you may be the most senior in that little group. You might have worked only 3 months, but the next person who comes in is only 1 month old. So you are the senior. You be asked to take lead, to give opinions, give pointers, to set them straight, because they would know what's happening. So it's always good to have leadership skills. Also, another point is that we all want to be paid more. We all want to have good jobs, and we
Yes.
all want to be recognized for the work that we do. So, you need to be able to stand up to bat and to be recognized and to stick out, and people see that you've done something,
Mhm.
something good. You've
Yes.
made a contribution. You should be rewarded. You should be recognized. You should be respected. I
Mhm.
read somewhere that 79% of people who resign their jobs do so because they felt unappreciated,
Mhm.
unrecognized. Nobody saw. They stepped up, but hey, nobody gave them any recognition. So they left. So
So
if you want
is
to
the
grow
onus
in
of
the
that
job, sorry,
recognition
yes.
on the organization, or is it also equally on the individual?
I think it's a two-way street. Because
Mhm.
you're going to be humble, shy, and retiring all the time and keep very
Because
quiet.
we're Malaysian, right? We don't like to,
We're
we like
Malaysian, but
to
problem will
be
be
shy. Yeah.
you'll be
We
ignored
don't like to
and
angkat
forgotten.
bakul, they say.
No, you're
Yeah.
not going to angkat bakul, but you're going to be noticed. And in
Mhm.
order to be noticed, you must have a voice. So you must be a good communicator, which is one of the most important traits of being a leader.
Mhm.
Then you must learn also how to communicate confidently. to believe in what you say, to communicate clearly,
Right.
also,
Right.
and to emote and enthuse, so that people also get infected with your interest and your joy, and why something should be done.
So if you want to motivate people to work together better, regardless of whether or not you're a leader, these skills that actually really relate to everybody, right? And also, obviously, as you pointed out, if you want to have some career progression, if you want to be more successful and move forward in your workplace and in your career, then you have to demonstrate that you have these types of skills. And there's no point being overly shy about it or overly polite to the point where you're not recognized for your talents and abilities. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So that's in the workplace. And Tria, do you think this is also relevant to people who, because we were talking about the corporate workplace, but what about people who work in the more creative industries or even the performing arts and in the entertainment industries or in creative in general? Do you think this is also relevant to people who work in those industries?
I I think so. Um, I mean, I've seen actors and what they call musical theater practitioners. Uh, they need to step up, right? I mean, some of them seem to be still in the game, you know, still performing, still creating stories, still writing and being creative. And also, there are others who decide to just stop or look for 9 to 5 jobs, like. But of course, I mean,
So if they
uh,
want to follow their
to the right
dream,
way,
what would both of you
we have
say?
to like
Uh,
people.
what would you both say about leadership development and leadership skills that are relevant for those who want to, as you put it, stay in the game, or even those in general who want to be entrepreneurs? Like, how are
They have
these?
to. They have to. Have to find a way. I mean, even as to decide to take that leap of faith, right?
Hmm,
To work as an artist in this country. I'm sure from your smiling, Sandra, you would agree, right? And that that
I would like to
that
add stuff, if I
requires
may. Yeah.
requires so much leadership skills,
and
right?
confidence in oneself, right?
Mm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sandra, what would you like to add to that?
Yeah, may I say something as a
Yes,
performer? Because I've got a
yes,
performing background as well, and
yes.
even management there.
Hmm,
If you're on your own and you're trying to stay in the game and you want to perform, if you're organizing your own show, you need to be able to persuade people to take part. You need to negotiate the best deal you can for
hmm.
everyone. So after the show, at least you have money to take home. You're not just paying for costs,
Yeah.
right? This
So
is a fact of
yeah.
life. It's a
Mhm.
fact of life. So you have to be able to state your case, to hold firm confidently, and to stick to your guns. I mean, fair deal, of course, so that you don't get overwhelmed and then be saddled by all the costs or even extra costs. And then after deducting everything, you find after all that effort, no doubt it was fun performing, but you have
Then
to eat too, right? And pay the bills. So you need to be able to
mm,
speak for yourself,
to be a
which is
leader,
all
right? You have
speaking
to
up.
have
Yeah, and
speak
to
for
be a
yourself.
leader, because those are the leadership qualities. Even if you're just alone and negotiating them, you're not going to be talked down to and browbeaten and
Hmm.
you don't want that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you need to be able to stand up for yourself, and you
So,
need these qualities.
okay, great. So this kind of leads on to the question of what are these qualities? What are leadership traits that are relevant not only to great leaders and inspirational leaders, but also to anybody who finds themselves in this position where they need these soft skills, they need these human
Skills.
skills. So let's try and define what would you say are these leadership qualities and these leadership traits?
The first one Sandra mentioned just now was good communication, right? A
Yes.
great communicators. That's number one. I feel the most important
So the clarity of
Yes.
communication, the expression of communication. There's no
Yes.
point if
To
you speak in a very monotone voice and everything you sound is the same. Something's very urgent or something's very casual, it all sounds the same. So there's no point having that type of voice, right?
not at
Yeah.
all. Not at
Okay.
all.
So by
To be
communication, we
clear,
mean
yeah,
beyond just clarity, right? What else do we
yes. To be clear, to be
mean?
able to enthuse, to be able to infect the enthusiasm to others, to be able to emote so that people can relate to what you're saying, and to
Yes,
be
this is very
able to
important.
emphasize the right things,
So many
then you
times
get
somebody's
followers.
speaking and we can't relate. We all get bored, we all fall
They're like,
asleep, we all start
meh,
playing with our
meh.
phone, right? Yeah, why is that? Because they cannot emote, right? People cannot relate to them. Is that would you say that's the reason?
But
Well,
that's
yeah, Chia?
uh, like some people find that being emotional is a weakness. So that is something that needs to change because in this time of I would say right now people are struggling, right? Let's admit this. People are struggling, uh, and yeah, if a good leader do not have emotions, it's quite hard, isn't it? So you have to
You don't want a robot leading you. You don't
yeah.
want somebody who's heartless or
Mm,
insensitive. I think
right.
insensitive. So you want somebody who can understand your predicaments. So we're all part of the same team. We're a team. You have to treat everybody like they're in the team, and
Mm,
and try and help them with their problems.
mm.
Otherwise, how
So
can you be on the
this
same team? You
comes
have a leader
down
who doesn't look
to
after you.
mm. So this is also what you would define as empathy, right? So not only
Yes,
being able to express oneself clearly by using our human emotions to express clearly, but having that heart and having that empathy and that compassion,
yes.
understanding a different point of view. Yeah. Why would you say that's more like really important, Sandra?
Well, because then it helps people connect with you and you connect with them. And
Mm.
how you communicate will help people determine whether they believe you or not. Some people just go through the motions, they say the words, but they don't feel it at all. And you can
Right.
tell by the eye contact, by the smile, whether it's glassy eyes or just,
Or
like,
is it
oh, yeah, right.
genuine?
Yes, not genuine at all. You
Mm.
want a real leader, a real person,
Mm.
So
And
you don't
someone you
want
can be
somebody,
confident in, right?
yeah,
Okay.
confident that they are all looking after everybody's interests, not just their own. Sometimes they need you to be behind them to have the power, and then they look after themselves. Uh-oh, you know?
Right.
So you need that. You need that. You need to be able to convince people that you're, on we are a team, we are together,
Mm.
we are all on one side, all
Right.
for, one for all for one, kind of three musketeer things.
And then together we're stronger to get through the struggle that we're all facing,
Yes,
to get through
yes,
all the challenges that we will
yes,
inevitably face, to get through
yes.
any human suffering that we will face at one point or another. Or maybe our business has changed completely in recent times and we're having to be agile, we're having to be adapt, we're having to become comfortable being uncomfortable. And how do we manage all of those emotions and still be productive and still be positive? Okay, so we talked about empathy, we talked about clarity of communication, the ability to emote, to really genuinely connect with people. What other leadership traits would we like to mention in our little discussion today that we feel will be relevant?
Confidence,
Ah,
confidence. Because if you have no confidence and you're very shy and retiring, or you're exhibiting all the wrong traits, because as Asians we're told not to be pushy, not to stare people down, not to whatever, so they go the other way and start hunching. We start looking down. I think you don't look very confident. And if your eyes all are going from one side to the other and all that, it doesn't present a good picture. You lose your power. You're disempowered. So people you are negotiating with or talking to, say you're talking to the other side on behalf of your team, they will not take you seriously, or they think you're a pushover because of what you're doing. Nobody asks you to be arrogant, look down your nose on people, but at the same time, the way you conduct yourself. You're able to look at them in the eye without threatening them. You're able to smile. You're able to hold yourself upright to show that you're not a pushover. So people will listen to your opinion and not just pretend to listen and then disregard you.
Mm.
So you have a voice. Very, very important, I think, for yourself. If you don't stand up for yourself or to be seen as standing up for yourself, then, you've just lost half your power, half your say, lost half your voice, at least.
So
And then you wonder why you don't get what you want.
yeah. So we're also making the assumption that sometimes people in the workplace have an underappreciation of their skills and abilities, right? So, I mean, we also define confidence as having an appreciation of your talent, your skill, your abilities
Of
that you
yourself,
have.
yes.
Yes, and you have that appreciation of yourself. And that is also how we define confidence.
Yes.
Not necessarily, like you said, arrogance, which is a
No,
completely different thing, isn't it? It's not
completely.
thinking that, oh, I'm better than everyone else or I'm more important, but also have an opinion that's equally as important as everybody else in this,
Yes, absolutely.
and I
Not
should make
less,
that
not more, but the
heard.
same.
Yes, yes. I should share it. I should make it heard. I think that underappreciation is also quite a Malaysian or Asian thing where we feel like, oh, I shouldn't speak out loud. Usually this happens in meetings a lot. People are too shy to express their opinions. They're afraid that others will look down on them. Sometimes people work in silos also, I think, because they're afraid other people might steal their ideas and then the idea is never
Yes,
shared anyways. So it
yes.
doesn't, but
And it's
actually,
all
I
lost.
think, yeah, I think we underestimate how the diversity of all different people within an organization together makes the whole organization stronger. So this idea here may be very different from this person's idea here, but
Absolutely.
together all of them are valid, and that's why you're hired. That's why you're in that workplace. Otherwise,
You
why?
want the diversity for the
Yes,
strength. Yes.
yes, yes. So can we talk a little bit about that, about sharing one's voice, about sharing one's opinion, whether or not you're in a leadership role? Like, would your managers or your leaders appreciate hearing your voice? Or do you think they'll feel, I think we Asians or Malaysians tend to feel like, oh, we're going to make someone else feel insecure if I share an opinion. What can we say about that?
I think it's important to realize that in theory, it's very nice to think that everybody is equal. I mean, that's a theory. It's a very lovely theory. If you ask the people in charge, they will agree with you. Everybody's equal, even though I'm the boss or you have an opinion, and it doesn't mean I'm the boss. Your opinion is not important. But if you do not exercise that right, it's very easy to forget you.
Mm,
And when you don't state an opinion, they assume that everything's okay. You may have been giving out the wrong signals, whether rightly, wrongly, on purpose, or whatever. Whether you're too frightened to speak, or if you, no need lah. Our usual thing is no need lah, for whatever reason, malu lah. No lah. After they think I'm too aggressive lah. If people
mm,
ask for your opinion, it's very important that you state it. Because later, if there is a consensus and your opinion is not taken into account, because maybe you never said anything, then actually you have no grounds for complaint. A lot of people are horrified to realize that common sense is not so common. So if people have asked you something and you do not respond, do not expect them to know. But if
yes,
you have
we're not
responded
mind
and they've
readers
ignored
yet,
you,
isn't it?
yeah. But if they've
Yeah.
ignored you, then you have a case. Then you have a case for
Mm,
negotiation or whatever, complaint, etc. But nobody wants to go to that extent. So it's good to have a free exchange of ideas and common respect. I mean, it's also very altruistic and very nice, but in reality, with the way, with flux and the changing situation all the time, and Malaysians like to talk about 20 things at the same time, things get lost.
mm.
So it's important that you state your case, especially when you've been invited. If you've not been invited and you keep on complaining, of course, that can be whinging and quite painful. then yes, there is a case for concern as well. Let's go on to the other extreme. But if you don't state how you feel, when people ask for feedback, I think that's a major problem here. A lot of
Mm.
people, malu lah, they're not lah, better not lah. I think you don't want to hear lah. Oh, I'm only one person, not important. You then not important, no complain lah. Oh,
Also, if you feel you're not important, why were you hired in that organization in the first place?
exactly. They're paying you money,
That's right. That's right. So that means you're valid, you are important, and
Yes,
you have a stake, you have a part, you have a role, a responsibility within the company, no matter what level you are in that organization, no matter how big or small the organization is. Um, we hear a lot of these type of complaints, especially from small businesses, because they're very small. So they do need to work better and stronger as small teams and say, oh, it's very hard to hire new talent. We can't find the right people with the right attitude, especially the young people nowadays or millennials, all these type
that's
of
true. Oh,
all these type of complaints. What do you think about that? How could leadership development help in these type of scenarios?
I, I think you can answer that, Joe. Yeah, well, what is your first? But first, I want to ask your own personal view about that.
Well, I think like Sandra was mentioning, sometimes we underappreciate um, colleagues or fellow members because maybe they're too shy to speak up. So I also feel like it is partly the responsibility of not just the individual, but also very much the individual, but also the organization and the leaders
yes,
within the organization to instill that kind of safety net and security and to instill that kind of confidence and say, please speak up, share your opinion. We have this problem, we have that problem, we have this challenge. What are the solutions to this? I'm not here working by myself. We have a whole team of people here. Let's hear from everybody. So if you have leaders who kind of create that kind of working environment and the communication is clear and we're open to all the ideas, whether or not we use these ideas in the long run, one idea that we don't use may spark the most genius, brilliant solution that saves the
true.
company. We never know, right? So this is where I'm answering my own question and
Yes,
also moving on
it's
to
you're the best suited. You're dealing with this on a daily basis.
yeah, and where we move on to, I feel how creativity is so important to leadership development, to our organizations. It has been touted by Forbes and by various different
Yeah.
articles about how creativity is the most important leadership skill. Could I have your thoughts
Same.
on that before we end off our session for today?
Well, creativity, I think, is something that we all have actually as human beings. It's just that we have forgotten sometimes, so we're afraid to try, or we feel that, oh, this is serious, we're working, we can't play, we can't try this, we can't do that. But it's people who have dared buck the trend and think out
Mm,
of the box that have come up with solutions that you would not get if you went from A to B to C to D to E. They were not afraid to start using numbers, instead of doing A, B, C, they're doing A, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they come back and they're at G already.
or they're not afraid to
Kind of thing.
have the confidence and the leadership skill to go from A and so let's just jump straight to E rather than
Yes,
going through
absolutely.
all these
We
processes.
don't need all this nonsense. Exactly. So if we already know and it's so clear, why are we doing that? Oh,
Mm,
yeah, kind of stuff. So it's also being daring, looking at things with different eyes. So that's why
mm.
new people sometimes are good because they don't know the old way.
Yeah, they're not
They
so
don't
stuck
know the old way. So they're
in
not
that way.
stuck because you have to do after A, you must do B. How can you not do B? And then other people coming back. Like you said, do we really need to do that? From what I see, we can go A to E, right? And we're
Yeah.
like, oh, yeah, you're right. Because they're not
And you also
settled.
need to be courageous, right? To be
Yeah,
able to
Courageous. Yes,
learn
that's a
that.
good word.
Courageous
not
to go A to E straight away instead of going the normal way, A, B, C,
And that
D.
requires leadership development to have that courageousness to have that confidence, isn't it? Developing that
To
within
dare.
oneself. Or to maybe even if you're not in a leadership position, you may even want to go and say, "Oh, boss, I can do this extra for you that I think will provide XYZ solutions. Could you promote me?"
Yeah.
How many of us do that here in Malaysia, especially women?
Very rarely. There are a few people, but very
I'm sure they
rarely.
are. I mean, there must be. I mean, especially people who are very gung ho, people who really
Mm,
wants to, yeah, go ahead.
yeah.
Um,
So
But the
why not
fact is,
develop
yeah,
that in ourselves, right? Yes, sorry, Sandra.
sorry, if you want to be paid more,
yeah,
if you want to be recognized, you need to step out of your comfort zone. You need to speak up. You need to be noticed and you need to do things. And in order to do things, you may need other people's support. So you have to lead. You
Mm.
have to be able to
Influence,
convince
persuade.
people to change.
Mm.
Yes, exactly.
Mm.
To change the way of doing things or the way of seeing things or even introducing something new that occurred to you. But if you're afraid to speak up about it, you're afraid to bring it to the attention of the bosses or even to get your team support, things never change. And
Right,
you will not be promoted or recognized. And a good idea
right.
is gone to waste.
It reminds me a bit of that quote from Einstein where he says something about the mindset and the attitude and the way of thinking that hasn't led to better ways of doing things is not the mindset that's going to help you. So you do have to be willing to step out of your normal comfort and try something new, which leads me to our final question for discussion: failure. How do we define and how do we feel about failure? Because a lot of reason why people don't have that courageousness, they don't have that confidence, is because they're very afraid to fail. So, Tria and Sandra, what are your thoughts on this?
failure.
I
I
think, yeah,
think
sorry, Tria, you first.
sorry. I think failure.
Obviously, no problem for
failure.
these women to have their voices heard here in this conversation.
I honestly don't think failure is something that we should really consider as the end of the end of something or the end of an it's probably the end of an era because perhaps that is a step to the next level of that you need to go through is it maybe a failure, for example, I I started a soap business at some point in my life, right?
I
And
bought the soap.
yes,
Too.
so so it kind of like failed, right? Failed because I refused to go step up from where I was, from where I was, instead of going really learning new things to develop that. I think failure is not really failure at the end of it. It's the starting of a next step to another level. That's how I see it. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So if
Fair enough.
without trying something new and failing, you would never find that next step or a new level of something.
New level
Okay.
of up leveling yourself, basically. Yeah.
Okay,
Self
I've got two ways of looking at failure. I mean,
Mm,
you say maybe you tried to do X, you didn't achieve X, but you had to learn a lot of things along the way.
yeah.
So maybe you learned you couldn't do X, but you found that you could do a lot of other things. And
mm,
all that experience that you had is not wasted. It will come out in some other way. You'll be learning. Like if you were sourcing, the things to put into your soap, and you wanted to have like organic dried flowers or something to put in, and even
Mhm.
flowers of a certain color and things like that. You might find that useful later when you're cooking.
Yeah.
yeah.
If you are
Correct.
making cakes after that, and then you might find, oh yeah, these are the edible flowers. I know where to get them. I know where to get them at a good price. And I know how to combine them and store them. So it is not wasted knowledge. It will come back. I believe that very, very strongly. And so
Mm.
it's not a complete failure. It might have been an economic failure,
Mhm.
but it might be good in terms of your morale and your
Mm.
knowledge and maybe your
And your
networking. You met a
skill.
lot of people, yeah, your skills
Yes.
as well. And you don't
Yeah.
really realize that until later when it comes up, you're like, oh yeah, I can do this because I used to do all that.
Mm. Mm.
I
Yeah.
used to make soap, and now that's why I can handle all these molds, and I can cut them straight when I cut the soap. Some people they make such nice soap, then they cut crooked. You wonder why. Things like silly things, all the tricks about the board and the knife, and when it's hard
Yeah.
enough, not too hard. I've other friends also make soap, and he told me all these things, and when you sprinkle the flowers in, and what if it doesn't sink, and silly things
Yeah.
like that to us, which are actually important. So you can
Mm.
even use it in baking with ingredients. All your fruit cake doesn't, all the what is it, preserved fruit and nuts all don't go right to the bottom in one lump. So you know how to do it at the right consistency, and you learn that, and even molding and whatnot. So coming back to failure. Failure means you fail to achieve something that you wanted to achieve. Maybe you achieved it, but it was too late. Or maybe
Took too
you
long.
did
It might have
not.
taken too long.
Yeah, taken too long, and it has sort of time sensitive, and now somebody else is. Maybe it's like two people fighting over the AIDS virus, the French and the Americans. The Americans beat them to it, but the French were there also doing the same thing, and trying to pin the whole thing down. So the same thing here. If we look at failure, every successful person that you look at has failed many times before. We
Mm.
forget that. We just see them cheering with ticker tape, the big,
Yep.
what is it, award that they get, the recognition, the cameras. But people forget the failure, the heartbreak, the expense, the lack of recognition. Now, what separates the failures from the people who succeed? The people who succeeded never gave up. They failed and they failed and they failed and they failed, but each time they got better until they succeeded. Some
Yes.
some people after a few, some people after many failures, the lesser mortals, they said, "Oh my God, give up." But they persisted. They were really stubborn. They wouldn't give up, and they got there. There are
And they
stories
learnt.
like that.
They learnt from the failures
They
how to
learned
do it
along the
better.
way.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. And some people, success was here, but for these people, because they failed so much, they went up to there
Mm.
comparison. So that's why they were so successful, but nobody looks behind their success. But if you do ask them, they will tell you they failed innumerable times. Sometimes you wonder, you say, my God, they're crazy. When you find out how many times they did that.
Yeah, they failed.
So the
Yeah.
yeah, so the secret is don't give up. Believe
Mm.
in yourself. Try and try again. Of course, sit down, cry. You've fallen, your knees hurt, your ego is hurt, your wallet is hurt, whatever, cry by all means. But then pick yourself up and try again. That is what separates the failures from the people who succeeded. That's
Mm.
what I've heard.
Very wise.
Excellent.
Very wise words. I love that. I love that.
Nice, Angela. I like
And
that.
to just wrap up, I think
Sharing.
we can kind of end that there. How do you do that with that positivity, and how do you pick yourself up again after you finish crying? And I feel this is where our human creativity, and how creativity helps with our emotional wellness and our overall well-being, and the ability to like see, okay, I failed now, but I've learned this. From there, I could imagine I could try again a different way, right? So that's
I think
where creativity,
resourcefulness. Yeah.
yes, the resourcefulness, that's right.
Yeah.
So this is where we come back to my favorite subject, creativity again.
Ability to
Which
solve problems, right? Yeah.
Yes, and to keep trying and trying again, like Sandra said, until you succeed. So, with that, I want to thank you both very, very much for having this
Thank
discussion. Our
you,
first,
Joanne.
talk, a free
Thank you
conversation
for
about
having us.
creativity. Yes, thank you, Sandra Sodi. Thank you, Tria Aziz. And
It was
Thank
fun.
you, Joanna Bessie, for
well, thank
coming
you.
and talking.
And we hope that whoever's listening in to our conversation here would love to join our actual training on how do you do all these things. How do you develop all of these leadership traits in yourself, no matter what level of your organization you work in? How do you communicate with clarity? How do you have presence? How do you make sure people relate to you in a genuine way and not in a you don't come across as condescending, you don't come across as being overlooked, but just in the right way that people can really engage with you for your own success. And how do you tap into what you're born with, your human creativity? And with that, thank you so much, everybody. And we hope to see you in our Leading with Impact Masterclass series and join Sandra Sodi, this expert trainer.
It's
And if
a
you want to find
pleasure.
out more about any of ourselves or our organization, you can also check out our corporate drama-based
Website?
training page
Yeah.
on our website,
Yeah.
www.infinityacademy.com. So it's spelled like this, infinityacademy.com.
InfinityAcademy.com. Yeah,
Thank you,
that's correct.
ladies. Yes.
Yay. Thank you, guys.
Hope to
Bye.
see more women leaders rising up through the ranks and being willing to try and try again.